Oh. I'm gonna have a bad day today. What's a compliment? Sure, for the Rita. Sure. Yeah. I can show him. Shut up, I'm not trying to let you hear me breathe. Look, actually, you're not supposed to hear me breathe. So, stupid. Okay. If someone's trying to scam you, you don't know what to say. Okay. Yep. Okay. I like this, it's catchy. Okay.
Recently hit upon a technique that has almost as good an effect but requires almost zero effort. I call it just say more fees. Anyway, so this all sounds really reasonable, doesn't it? So thanks, Daniel. I'm really looking forward to that. And you're going to help me with part of my fee. Oh, that's really kind of you. So what could I say but, okay. So only a day passed and I had another email from Daniel Gary. And it says, as for the delivery charges, like I told you before, we can only share it equal. Waffle, waffle, waffle. Says the charge on the delivery is $390, so we'll have to share it among us. And I'll pay some part, while you pay the rest that's best I can do for you. And then, interestingly, he volunteers some information I didn't ask for. Let me remind you, I'm a good Christian. I don't cheat on people and I don't steal people's money. I would never do such because God is against it. Okay, well, that all sounds very, very reassuring, and I'm glad that you're a man of God, Gary, so what could I say but, okay. At this point, Gary seems to lose his temper a little bit with me, which is a bit strange. I mean, I've been quite compliant so far. All I've said is okay. And he says, you cannot teach me my job that I've been doing for several years now and still doing it. That's the only way it works. If you can't pay part of the fee and I pay the rest, I'm afraid you'll have to forget it and we'll terminate the transaction. Well, it seems a bit rude, doesn't it? I mean, I've been very compliant so far. So anyway, he says, until you're ready to abide with the company's rule, the choice is yours. Okay? Well, he's asked, so I said, okay. So Gary came back the next day and reiterated, the fee remain as I told you before. It's $390 and I'll pay part of it, and why you also pay part of it. Please send your details so I can send it to the delivery. Why did you refuse to send your details since I keep asking you? Okay, well, indeed. I could only think of one thing to say, which was, okay. Daniel came back almost immediately and said, hello, are you ready to make the payment now so we can deliver your car and ATM card to you? Of course I'm ready. So I said, okay. At this point, it's rather amusing to see that Daniel Gary lost his temper, which is, of course, the goal of all of this. So Gary comes back and says, okay, what? Do you need the information? So you go to Western Union and make the payment. If you need the payment details, reply back and send, yes, send me the payment details. So I replied back as he requested. Okay. Yeah, see, much like...
He's driving.
So that was the last I heard from Daniel Gary, and that was about a week ago. However, I've been emailing him every day just to keep in touch, and in fact sometimes
Part of Rocket League's appeal is its mechanics. When everyone saw the Squishy Muffin ceiling shot or the over-zero air dribble, everyone wanted to learn it. But let's be real, it's not because it's the most effective strategy out there, but because it makes you look like an RLCS pro when compared to the other mere platinums in your lobby. Nevertheless, mechanics are a staple of our wonderful and sometimes not so wonderful game, and improving and refining them is necessary towards improvement. To compete at a higher level, you need to be able to do things such as fast aerial and wave dash, or else you will be left behind and get beaten very easily. With this in mind, I got one player from every rank and ran them through a mechanics course, with 8 mechanics that range from fairly easy to very difficult. Hopefully this gives a decent representation of the level of mechanical skill between all the ranks, and also shows the progression of ability the higher we go. More importantly, however, is the following point. Most people expect that because you are a certain rank, you must have a certain level of mechanics. This is not true. This video proves it. Mechanics are demanded. As much as this video is meant to show the cool progression of mechanics
Apex Legends needs to fix this
Speed
game.
flip, plus aerial, an aerial control and boost management test, an air dribble, a ceiling shot, and finally, the last boss, a flip reset.
They need to fix
I'll go
this
through
game.
each mechanic individually and show you all how they compare. So, without further ado, let's begin. So, pretty much every rank is able to do a wave dash. I had to give a few of the lower ranked players some guidance, but after a few turns they were able to do it. However, it is pretty obvious to see that the ease at which the players are able to do this mechanic increases as we go higher up, to the point where it becomes autonomous at champ and above. This is arguably the easiest mechanic on the list, so it's no surprise to see there is nothing more than a few minor struggles. So, if you haven't learned it, definitely go try it out, as this has just proven that rank should be no barrier. The half flip is a fairly easy mechanic to learn. You can do it by one of two ways. Firstly, by diagonally cancelling a backflip with no air roll involved, or by straight cancelling a backflip and then holding air roll left or right. Both the bronze and silver players struggle with this, likely because they've never really practiced it before, and at gold or above, every player did it with relative ease. So, like the first, I recommend trying to learn this. Being one of the newer mechanics on the list, it's no surprise to see a bit of variation in what players actually know how to do it. It's not that these players don't have the mechanical ability, it's likely a case of that they either don't know how to or haven't practiced it enough to get it down. Only the Grand Champ was able to pull it off correctly, and whilst there were some close attempts, all but one were incorrect. Rather than doing it all simultaneously. So if there's anything to take out of this, is just try to improve the speed of the air.
Scary money, start right
Beginning ring countdown.
Bro, your hands are cold.
That's quite good news, that.
Attention all, the champions down.
Another soft landing.
heal was there quicker. Holy Well, isn't that sad?
This isn't a specific mechanic, but rather a combination of car, aerial, and boost control. This really shows the skill gap between the lower and higher ranks, as whilst the lower ranks can do it, it's pretty obvious to see that it lacks fluidity and control. They sort of get themselves in a position in which they can just hold boost down without any sort of adjustment, which whilst yes, it does work, in an in-game scenario it isn't really feasible as the ball is always moving and bouncing around. The higher ranks get both further and exhibit much more control. They air roll and tornado spin and just overall have much better control over everything. This is the first mechanic that I would classify in the difficult category, and it shows. Every rank with the exception of Champ and Grand Champ really struggle with this one. Unlike some of the others, I think that it is not because they haven't practiced it enough, but they just purely don't have the control and muscle memory to pull it off. On top of this, air dribbles aren't a mechanic you really should experiment with until you get to the higher ranks, so it's no surprise to see these results. Additionally, the Champ had arguably a better air dribble, but is still lower than the 1600 DC, which goes to show flashy mechanics aren't everything. Like the air dribble, this is a particularly difficult mechanic to learn and master. Also like
Next ring's a wee trip away.
That sound effect tricked me.
Like the air dribble, the players below Champ really struggled with it, as only the Champ and the GC were able to pull off clean ceiling shots. In all fairness, it is pretty useless in the lower ranks, so that may explain why they don't know how to do it. But one thing I did notice was the inversion messed with a lot of the players, so when they went on the